How do everybody? Got a bit of an update on a quite an old story here, and it's to do with a woman called Sacoolas. She's an American lady, and I believe, if memory serves me right, she was the wife of the US ambassador to the United Kingdom. Long story short, she was driving past an RAF base, and she was on the wrong side of the road, and she hit somebody on a motorbike and killed them. But rather than reporting what had happened, she actually fled the scene and used her diplomatic privileges to flee the UK back to America. And I've just found a story here which has come out today, which I think is going to continue the ongoing saga of that. Very shocking story, really. Very, very shocking story. Anyway, let's go on with the story because I'm curious to know actually what we can find out here. Sacoolas insisted she drove like an American on day she careered into Harry Dunn's oncoming motorbike outside RAF base as killer US diplomat is absent from teen's inquest. Well, I don't want to be insulting to Americans here, but I don't think that's necessarily the most endearing of words that you can use to say she drove like an American. Having seen, obviously, footage of... granted, these are videos that have been shared because they are atrociously bad, but, you know, some of the videos that come out of America of showing people driving aren't always the, what you call the most professional of driving standards. The US government employee was given an 8-month suspended sentence. Harry Dunn's family have been left shocked by her not giving evidence in public. A US government employee has apologised for a tragic mistake which resulted in the death of Harry Dunn as she remained absent from the inquest. As I say, it says here that she's a government employee. I think what that may be, and I could be wrong here, but I do believe that it's because I believe her husband hired her to be part of his ambassadorial staff. Now, whether she was actually doing any real work or not is another thing, another question. I don't know. Not really that into that much, but I'm going off memory. But I do find the wording to be quite funny by the mail here. I could be wrong though, that she may not have been married to the ambassador, but I believe I'm 99% certain that she was. Sacoolas insisted she was a safe driver and was driving like an American on the day she careered into the teenager's oncoming motorbike outside an RAF base. Well, I'd say driving on the wrong side of the road isn't being a safe driver. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, but I do believe that that is dangerous driving. You know, that's my opinion. I'm willing to be told I'm wrong. Now, to play devil's advocate, having served in Germany when I was in the army, I did find sometimes that when I would come home, when the roads were empty, usually for the first 24 to 48 hours, say I got in my car late at night, I would sometimes drive on the wrong side of the road. However, within 5 to 10 seconds of doing that, I'd be like, oh dear, what am I doing? I'm on the wrong side of the road. And I would correct myself. But that is... I don't think she just had a moment of madness there. I think this may have been something where she's been doing it for quite a long time. Her comments came in a voluntary interview with police 2 months after the fatal crash in 2019, and which were today read out to a court. An inquest into Mr. Dunn's death heard that when asked what she believed had caused the collision, she told Northamptonshire police officers, "I drove like an American and drove on the American side of the road." Sacoolas said in a witness statement that the crash which killed the teenage motorcyclist in August 2019 is something that will live with her every single day for the rest of my life. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, the family of Mr. Dunn have got to live with that for the rest of their lives as well. And unfortunately, Mr. Dunn does not get to live the rest of his life because she ended it shortly. Now, she may say that she was driving safely, but unfortunately, I disagree there because that is driving, at the very least, with undue care and attention. She knows that she's in a foreign country and she knows she's got to be on the other side of the road, and really, there's no excuses for it. As I've said, you know, I've done it myself where I've got in the car after, you know, being in Germany, say, for, let's say, 4 or 5 months, driving every day on the other side of the road there, coming home, and then maybe going to the shop to get something, getting in the car, instinctively going to what would then be the wrong side of the road, but almost automatically realising, oh, I'm on the wrong side of the road because I was driving with care and attention and making myself aware of these things. You know, nobody would be unforgiving on, you know, a minor mistake like that. You know, it's understandable, but to be driving full speed down a full road, you know, that's reckless endangerment. The US State Department asserted diplomatic immunity on behalf of Sacoolas, and she was able to leave the UK 19 days after the fatal collision. She appeared before, I mean, that is just absolutely sickening that they allowed that to happen as well. The US State Department really shouldn't have done that, and really our government should have made a bigger stink about this as well. I find it absolutely shocking that this whole situation transpired the way that it did. She appeared before a High Court judge at the Old Bailey via video link in December 2022, where she pleaded guilty to causing death by careless driving. I mean, really, it's a form. In my opinion, it's manslaughter. This is not just death by careless driving. This whole thing about this, and we've had this with many cases where people have been driving at ridiculous speeds as well. You know, people from this country, and they've killed people, and they get absolutely pathetic sentences. It's just totally shocking. This whole thing around people being killed by people driving recklessly and getting a slap on the wrist it's just absolutely shocking. There's just no accountability in this section of law. It really is terrible that this is allowed to continue. Sacoolas was advised against attending her sentencing hearing by her employer, which prompted the family to say they were horrified that the US government was actively interfering in our criminal justice system. I totally agree with that, because, if one of our ambassadors' staff had done this and fled back to the UK, the American authorities would be kicking up a right stink about it and demanding that we extradite the people, and they'd be pulling on every single extradition order agreement that we've got with them. And our government should be doing the exact same thing, and it's just absolute weakness on the Tories. Again, another thing that the Tories are weak on, they've just got no spine whatsoever. Just pathetic people, cowards, absolute moral cowards who are scared of doing the right thing because they care too much about what other people think about them rather than doing the job, which is being politicians. Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb handed her an 8-month prison sentence, suspended for 12 months. A fat load of good that is when she's in America, isn't it? In one of her witness statements, Sacoolas said she instinctively moved to the right side of the road and was not aware she was on the wrong side of the road until after the collision. You see, I find that hard to believe, though, because like I've said, I've lived in a foreign country myself. And again, I could be wrong here, but I believe she was in the country for a long time before this accident happened. So I do find this very difficult to believe. I find, it just doesn't sit right with me. And I think she's used that as a very, very cheap excuse to excuse her bad behaviour. I could be wrong with that. Obviously, I'm not a mind reader. But to me, this just stinks to high heaven, this whole thing around this weak excuse. A statement from her lawyer in the US in September 2020 said Sacoolas had been driving on the wrong side of the road for 20 seconds before she hit Mr. Dunn outside RAF Croughton in Northamptonshire. I mean, 20, that's a long time, that, by the way, 20 seconds. People think it's not much, but it really, really is a long time. And she's not just... But the thing is as well is she's not just got in the car and said, so like I've said when I've done this myself, is as soon as I've got in the car, I've pulled out, gone onto the wrong side of the road, and then be like, oh, I've got to get back on the other side of the road again. She's driven around the RAF camp here and everything, and on military camps, I've been on myself, they have proper roads on them. It's not just like little tracks that you drive, single lane tracks. So she's already got herself into UK driving mode just by leaving camp as well. So the whole thing just does not make sense to me. It really, really doesn't. And I just find it to be a very, very weak excuse. Now, again, I could be wrong. I don't think I am, though. She told the inquest she hysterically flagged down a motorist after the crash and begged her to help. The 45-year-old, she may have done, I may have been wrong at the beginning that she fled the scene then, because it has been a long time since, obviously 2019, since I've read this. So I may be wrong on that, on what I said at the beginning. That's fair enough. But I've got it in my head that she did flee. I may be mixing it up with the fact that she left under the ambassadorial rules. So I could be getting that mixed up with my own mind over, because of the amount of time since I last heard about this story. The 45-year-old said she had not received any training on driving on UK roads after arriving in the country. Well, whose fault's that? That's her fault for not seeking that driving training, isn't it, really? Again, that's a lack of personal accountability there. And that's I couldn't care less, really. That's on her, really. More fool her, which makes her even more dangerous and reckless. Sacoolas, who gave her employment details to police as an analyst for the US State Department, rejected the coroner's investigation to give live evidence to the inquest. Her lawyer, Ben Cooper, previously told the court she had provided everything she could to help this inquest and offered to answer any further questions. Well, sorry, Mr. Cooper, but it's not you who's on trial. It's your client, so it's for her to give the evidence to the court, not you. In one of her 2 witness statements, which was only prepared for the inquest on Wednesday, Sacoolas said, "Immediately after the incident, I hysterically flagged down a motorist and begged her to get help." You see, again, that is really, really bad form. That may be acceptable in an American court, but over here, that is really bad form. Not putting evidence in much sooner than that. And this refusal to answer as well, that doesn't wash generally in UK courts. Again, I don't know what it's like in American courts. Not got a clue. Can't comment. Maybe that's acceptable there. But over here, that is really, really bad form. While she called 999, I called my husband to contact the base for help because we were so close to the base entrance. The base was the first to respond. She continued, "As I turned out of the exit from the Croton Air Force Base, taking a left turn, I instinctively moved to the right side of the road. I knew that the proper side of the road to drive on was the left side, not the right side, as I was accustomed to driving in the US. My action was based on instinct and not recalling in that moment that I should have been driving on the other side." Concluding her most recent statement, Sacoolas said, "I deeply regret having caused this accident." Well, at least she's acknowledging that she's caused it. That is at least something. But it's still wrong that she didn't come to the UK. In my mind, she's got away with what I consider to be murder, or at the very least manslaughter. And the US should really be sending her over here as a goodwill gesture for our 2 countries. This young man's life has been taken away from him and his family have to live on without him in their lives. It's very, very shocking. I made a tragic mistake that I will live with me every single day of my life. Well, he unfortunately doesn't get to live his life, as I said before. There's not a single day that goes by that Harry is not on my mind, and I'm deeply sorry for the pain that I have caused. We'll come to the UK and face justice then instead of hiding over there. The inquest, which is due to conclude at 1 p.m. tomorrow, continues. Mr. Dunn's family said earlier this week that they were shocked and upset after finding out just days before his inquest that Sacoolas would not be giving live evidence, which is pure cowardice, that it really is. I'm not surprised. I'm really, really not surprised by this, unfortunately. It does seem to be a thing in America where lawyers are quite slimy like that. I suppose lawyers in general. But there we go. Somebody who's evaded justice. Northamptonshire coroner Anne Pember issued a request to Sacoolas that she attend remotely today. But the proposed witness list for the inquest revealed her evidence would instead be read to the court. Very unsatisfactory. I've not really got more to add to that. I've given my opinions throughout it, and I don't want to berate Americans in particular. Generally great people, hardworking, generally honest, good values. This is just typical politician sort of behaviour in it, running away and hiding. And to be honest with you, I think if our politicians could get away with it and our ambassadorial staff, they'd probably do the exact same thing as well. So that's not to criticise the Americans, although I have been through the video criticising the Americans specifically. I think it's just that type of person, and I think that sort of job attracts that sort of person, self-serving and self-interested with no honour when it comes to actually having to do the right thing. Just terrible story all around, and that's really a terrible closing chapter to a terrible story. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. If you found that interesting, insightful, useful in any way, please do like, subscribe. Definitely please put comments below. Whatever you think, whether you agree with me or not, I'm not a closed book, and I'm willing to change my mind if you disagree with me. So don't feel that I won't change my mind. If you've got a good enough argument, I'm happy to for somebody to explain to me why I'm wrong, as long as you can do it in a decent way. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you very much, and goodbye.